Once upon a time in Stockholm, two Swedish men plotted to take over the global music business. Yeah, just like Pinky and the Brain, except they succeeded. This is a story of how Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzon created Spotify. Growing up in rough Ragsved, Ek was only 5 years old when he first got the two instruments that would change his life forever. They were a guitar and a Commodore 20 computer. Ek's stepdad worked in IT and helped him quickly pick up basic coding skills. As for the music, his mother's parents had been performing musicians. It basically ran in his blood. It was at the apex of the dot-com bubble that Ek got the opportunity to start his first enterprise. Businesses were warming up to the internet and needed web pages to explore its possibilities. At the time, commercial web pages sold for up to $50,000. However, a 14-year-old Ek was building these sought-after tools and trading them for just $5,000. Soon, he needed more hands to meet the demands of his multiplying clientele. To do this, Ek tapped into his pool of talented high school friends. He taught the calculators how to write HTML, and the artist the digital art of Photoshop. It wasn't long before the teenage entrepreneur was counting $15,000 in monthly income. With his young money, he bought every computer game on the market, including his favorite, capitalism. Besides games, he ventured into other aspects of the internet, ultimately buying servers and earning more money for hosting web pages. Ek was 16 when Google rejected his application to be an engineer for their search engine. In response to the rejection, he tried to build a competing search engine. Needless to say, his invention never saw the light of day, but he still gets an A for his ambition. This experience earned him a job in search engine optimization, and he used his salary to buy more servers. Leaving high school, Ek was an experienced computer guru and a mini mogul, but he still wanted to get a college degree. After all, it was why Google turned him away. So he applied to study engineering at Sweden's Royal Institute of Technology. For a boy already used to hands-on learning, Ek's interest in school fizzled out after just 8 weeks. He might have stayed if they skipped to the cool stuff, but when he realized the whole first year was going to be about theoretical mathematics, Ek dropped out. In the years that followed, he worked for several companies and developed his own startups until his breakthrough came in 2006. That year, Tradedoubler bought one of his projects, an advertisement service called Advertigo, for $1 million. Then he sold more patents for an additional $1 million. At 23, Ek was a self-made millionaire. He splurged on a 3-bedroom apartment and a cherry red Ferrari Modena. And to get the woman's attention, he acquired passes into the top clubs in Stockholm. He rode this wave for a while until he collapsed in an ocean of uncertainty. His new self-image conflicted with who he wanted to be. In search of clarity, he left his shiny life behind and relocated to a cabin close to his parents. There, Ek employed the therapeutic powers of meditation and music. Being a multi-instrumentalist, he even considered pursuing music professionally. Maybe he'd be selling his music on iTunes now if he had not befriended Martin Lorentzon around this time. Lorentzon was about twice his age at 42, but probably fitter. He was a celebrated leader in the European IT industry. Through connections he made in Silicon Valley, he created the acclaimed Tradedoubler. But after taking it public in 2005, he was removed from the digital marketer's day-to-day operations. When Ek first visited Lorentzon in his apartment of 1 year, all he had was a mattress, an IKEA chair, and a laptop. The doldrum days were taking their toll. Like his friend, the $70 million he made from Tradedoubler couldn't fill the void. While the two binge-watched classic gangster movies, they began mapping a way out of their maze. They decided to build something together, but they didn't know what to create. Before they started, Lorentzon had to resign from Tradedoubler and commit €1 million in seed money to their new endeavor. Finally, they chose to disrupt the music business, and they had 2 elements working in their favor. One was Ek's passion for music. The other thing was Lorentzon's knowledge of marketing. While brainstorming on possible names for their music site, Ek misheard Lorentzon and Googled Spotify. The name returned 0 hits. They recruited a team of engineers, flew out to a party in Barcelona, and got to work on Spotify. The interface of Apple's iTunes and the styling of Ek's Samsung flat-screen TV inspired Spotify's first look. But when they finished the product, nobody wanted it. The internet and the ease of sharing digital music had become the bane of the music industry. Inspired by a pioneer site called Napster, music pirates had squashed record sales. Apple's iTunes came to fix the problem by making users buy singles, but the market further plummeted. People doubted the profitability of Spotify, and labels wanted nothing to do with it. Similar startups were using pirated music to catalyze their growth, but Eck was stubborn about obtaining legal licenses. However, as they kept getting cold shoulders, he uploaded pirated music to Spotify and showed demos to music executives. At first, Spotify tried and failed to get global music rights, so they decided to start with Europe. During their struggle for permission, the co-founders dug into their wallets to keep their idea alive, spending over $7 million in the process. Eventually, in 2008, Spotify launched at home in Scandinavia, France, Spain, and the United Kingdom. They were growing in Europe, but they had to wait until 2011 to break into America's music powerhouse. Sean Parker was one of Napster's creators. He had just left his position at Facebook's president when he begged Eck to let him invest in Spotify. With his assistance, Spotify scored a partnership with Facebook and penetrated the US market. Their success in the US was, in part, due to Spotify's deals with Warner, Universal, EMI, Sony, and Merlin. They gave the big record labels 18% equity in the company to get access to their music. To consumers, Spotify was an easy sell. It was cheap, fast, and accessible, employing a freemium monetization strategy. Users could get limited use of the streaming platform at the cost of obtrusive advertisements, or totally ad-free access for between $5 and $10. Years passed and Spotify wasn't making money. This worried stakeholders, especially the musicians who felt they were giving their music away for free. One of the most publicized complaints came from Taylor Swift. In 2014, Swift released her fifth studio album, 1989, but didn't make it available on Spotify, citing the platform's meager compensation. Eck and Spotify tried to convince her to give them her music, but she would remove her entire catalog some months later. In 2018, a year before Swift's return and 2 years after Lorentzon stepped down as Spotify chairman, Spotify went public. It sold its shares through a direct public offering, and at the end of that trading day, Spotify had a market cap of $26.5 billion. Its growth-focused model has prevented it from making tangible financial gains, but artists are no longer complaining. As Spotify inches towards its goal of 1 billion users by 2030, it retains the largest market share in an industry that features Google, Apple, and Amazon as competitors. Isn't it incredible that Daniel Eck and Martin Lorentzon created the world's most popular music library out of boredom? If you want more stories like this video and subscribe to the channel for more.